Good evening, everyone. We have Lunamask team now to present their final pitch. And the floor is yours, Lunamask. All the best. Go ahead.
Thank you, Rashika, and good evening, everyone. We are Lunamask, and today we are going to propose a very interesting idea for you. Let me start off by telling you what astronaut Gene Cernan said about the moon dust during their Apollo mission. It's amazing stuff. Feel it. It is soft like a snow. I wish I could take some. And yes, indeed, moon dust is soft, but it's also hard in a way because it gave him the history's first recorded case of extraterrestrial hay fever. Next slide, please. According to GeoHealth study, lunar soil is toxic to human lung and mouse brain cells. Up to 90% of human lung cells and mouse neurons died when exposed to dust particles that mimic soils found in the moon surface. The study shows that breathing toxic dust, even minute quantities, could pose a health hazard to future astronauts traveling to the moon. And keep in mind, it could be any one of us. We all know that zero gravity can be harmful to human health, but planetary dust poses an additional risk that has been mostly overlooked. Next slide, please. And thanks to the COVID pandemic, it inspired us to come up with a simple but a very effective solution, which is a face mask supported with a dust sensor, which will assess the astronauts about the dust areas, and it will reduce the risk of smelling or breathing the dust, which is in return reduces the risk of inflammation, cell death, or even cancer. So the astronauts will wear this mask once they return to the lunar base. So it's going to be in the first chamber or in the headroom to detect whether there are some particles of dust on their bodies or in their internal clothes. Next slide, please. And this is a visual representation of the mask. As you can see here, there are two filter layers. The first one is an air permeable filter, and the second one is a filter that resists the stress caused by the particles carried in the airflow. And here in the middle, we're having an optical particle sensor to detect the dust. And now my teammate Sakina will tell us more about the validation of this idea.
The verification and validation plan will allow to check the conformity of the mask and the sensors to ensure that it meets to the specification. These checks could be something such as reading the specification and comparing them against the prototype to make sure they line up. On one hand, the verification process will include activities like reviews, analysis, inspections, testing, and also all the changes that will be carried out to complete the project. On the other hand, the validation process will include test planning, prototyping, mask design, simulation, integration system, and so on. In our case, a mask is easy to test. We're just going to shoot dust on the mask to make sure that the mask filters every particle and test its robustness. And also, if we want to recreate the learned environment, the experiment can be carried out underwater to reproduce as closely as possible the zero gravity effects. Next slide, please. We came up with 3 different scenarios that can potentially occur, such as communication issues, mask tearing, and sensor imprecision. So even if the ranking risks are low, these risks could potentially cause damage, like putting astronauts' lives in danger, miscommunication, misunderstandings among the team, lack of sensitivity, breath, the lunar soil that could cause stress of astronauts. Next slide, please. So here's a quick idea on the project plan if the project will be selected. The next step will be focusing on working on the prototype. To support the development of the project at this stage, we set up a quick project management system. As you can see, it is a quick overview of the different stages of the project over time. So the different stages of our project are the prototype development, testing, equipment preparation, and system integration. And we give a rough idea about how long it is going to take to achieve our goal, but we can anticipate the fact that it may take longer. So now I'll let Afra continue the presentation. Next slide, please.
So, unfortunately, we didn't come with the final mask design, as we need more researches about the best sensors and filters. Lunar dust sizes between 10 to 20 micrometers or less, so it's similar to the dust here in the Earth. So we looked to devices that filter dust. The first one is the air quality monitor with many purposes, and it's only cost $100. Of course, it's for each astronaut. But if we need the sensor itself, it may cost less. The second, it can detect up to 2 micrometers particles. So the other device is optical sensor, and it can detect from 1 to 10 microns. So we can detect the moon dust. The other part of this cost is the fabric. So we thought about the most efficient mask during this pandemic, which is N95, which use polypropylene fabric. The other fabric we didn't mention here, but we thought about the silicone fabric that coated with fiberglass to achieve high shield from fire, water, and UV, such of materials that we needed in space. The next slide, please. From the ethical aspect, our mask is safe. It doesn't harm the astronaut, and the result will keep between the astronaut and the ground center. And of course, we will take the permission from the astronaut, so they will know that we are taking the measurement. As I mentioned, we need to work more about in designing the mask. So our future idea is trying to make the air around the mask and the person who wear it clearer. So we would coat a layer of MOPS, which is metal organic framework. We can coat it, it's basically coated in aluminum or zinc polymers. It works as a trap for hydrogen atoms. So when we breathe out, it will catch the carbon from carbon dioxide, which lead to produce pure oxygen. It's a new material, and it didn't use in space yet. So, but we never know how efficient is it unless we are trying. Next slide, please. And yes, this is Biometric Commanders, and we are ready for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job. Wonderfully done. Okay, so at this time, we will open up the floor to our mentors and our jury members first. So if they have any questions, please ask these now, and then we will go on to the students and participants.
I had a question. I'm not sure I understood correctly when you said the astronauts are going to wear the mask when they are coming back from an EVA, so they are coming back into the base?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so just in the SAS between the outside and the base?
It's inside in the base after they take off their suits, because as we know, the moon dust is sticky, and whenever they try to clean their suits, it's still hard to. It's the astronaut, actually Apollo astronaut, they smell it in the air or something. So the mask is not to only to protect them, but to monitor the air concentration, the dust concentration in the air, so we can, if it's any risk, we can detect it quickly.
Okay, and to test to test your system, to test the mask, are you gonna buy some lunar regolith simulation, like a false lunar regolith?
Sorry, but if we test it, we will like a dusty environment, and it contains like so we know how efficient is the sensor before we can like send it there.
Okay.
So basically, we're going to try it on a soil that mimic the soil found on the moon surface. Yep.
And how are you gonna receive the data from the mask to see if it's efficient and if it's if the dust doesn't get through?
So basically, we were because it's a new concept that to detect the dust particle in Earth. So we first, when we test it in the Earth, we want to like compare it to the breath rate, so we can know how it affects the breath rate and try to like find the relationship between the two values.
Okay, but when for example, in Asclepius mission, if you're not on the field and they wear the mask, you can't wait for them to return to analyze the masks, right? You need to receive the data to know if it was efficient.
Again, I don't get the question. Sorry.
My question was to know if it was efficient and if the astronauts are not breathing the dust. Since you are not with the astronauts and you can't just take their mask and analyze it, how are you going to receive the data? Is it connected or the sensor?
Yes, it is already connected to the astronauts and for also the ground center at Earth, so they can see the whole picture of what happened for them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. It is great, and I think it's very innovative, and I like that you got inspired from the pandemic. Just, I don't know if you took that into account in your planning, but if you plan on using so dust sensors to detect the dust, but also if you'd like to measure the breathing rates of the astronauts, for that kind of experiment, you have to go through an ethics committee in your country, and that could take some time to design such a prototype. So I don't know if you've taken that into account already. It's all right if you didn't. It's just a comment that maybe you should take a look at that because you will need to go through it if you want to test on astronauts one day.
Sorry, we actually looked around the athlete's mask, and we want to. I told you that we are not have like the final design for the mask, so we already thought about the athlete and sports mask, which is similar to us because some masks that it forces the person to breathe properly, even if they have some issues. So we want to like figure it out more and research more about this.
Yeah, of course. I understand that completely. I mean, you've only had 48 hours. I just wanted to mention that for that kind of experiment, you have to go through administrative teams within your country before you can test on humans. So just so that you know that you need to take that into account in your planning if you are selected.
Yes, great.
Is there any more questions? No?
Yeah, actually, I have a question. So thank you for your presentation. It was about the budget. So you were giving a price per mask, but about the sensors, it was not per mask. So I was just wondering whether the $500 and the, if I remember, was the 55. So the 100 and the $55, if they were only to build one mask or if they were to build like several of them.
Yes, it's of course for every mask, but as we know, the astronaut is not even if it's like a limited number of astronauts that will go, or they will act with the dust moon. So interact with the dust moon, so it will not cost. But it's a good note.
Thank you.